Welcome back. In this section, we're going to be tackling asking questions in the classroom. So in this part of the course, we're going to be taking a look at why we ask questions, what makes a good question, exploring different types of questions. We're going to be giving you a whole bunch of different kinds that you can add to your question asking arsenal. We'll be observing different questions in action, and finally, come the end, designing your own questions. And as I referenced in the previous course, we're going to be talking about Bloom's taxonomy. So if you want to go back and rewatch that video to freshen your memory up a little bit, then by all means do that, and then come right on back here and you'll be on the same page and everything will be good. First up is maybe a seemingly basic question in and of itself. Why ask questions? Well, there are tons of benefits to doing so in the classroom, and sometimes it feels good to just iterate what they are to reinforce their importance and why we do it so often in the classroom. For one, they motivate student learning and fuel curiosity. These are absolutely critical at this stage, and no student will continue learning if they are not curious about a given subject. It fosters their intellectual development, which stimulates critical thinking skills. Those two together, it's probably not going to get them very far if they don't have those critical and creative thinking skills right from the get-go, and asking the right types of questions really gets them going and gets them interested in a subject to build their development. It also helps us to assess the student understanding. If we were not asking them questions and we didn't have their answers to go by, we wouldn't necessarily be able to gauge where they're at in the level, if the information we're giving them is actually effective, and whether or not we need to back up a few paces and maybe help them through it a little bit more. This is all about guiding and correcting, so questions are one of the most essential items in our toolkit to do that very thing. And finally, it helps guide our discussion and shape a positive learning environment, which at the end of the day is absolutely critical. We're in a particular learning environment that is fairly new. It's only been around for the last couple of decades, in the last thousands of years worth of human learning. And as such, it is a little bit unfamiliar. And we have to make sure that we do foster a very positive environment for our students so that it's a place that they want to keep coming back to. And in terms of guiding discussion, that's absolutely critical for us being able to get the student talking, but also talking about the right stuff to make sure that we're meeting our learning objectives. So what makes a good question? Let's look at three component parts. Number one, it should be both answerable and challenging, which is quite the challenge, honestly. This is not an easy task necessarily, and it means that you have to be very much aware of your students' abilities and adapt it according to them. So once that's done, make sure that you're also keeping the course goals in mind. We've all done this. We're trying to build rapport and get on good terms with the student, and we're asking questions that lead us further and further away from our ultimate goal. And it's all well and good to go on a tangent and talk about Minecraft and have the kid be like, wow, what a fun class. But if it means that we were missing out on our target sentences and they don't understand any of the key vocabulary, then were we really impactful with those kind of questions? See if you can intermingle them. That's the best idea ultimately. And finally, and this is absolutely critical, it's a nonverbal communication in a question. It's your delivery in voice tone and body language. These are things that aren't necessarily linked to the critical thinking skills, but more the intuitive thinking skills. So how you deliver a question in terms of your voice is going to gauge whether or not it's aggressive or judgmental or too evaluative, where they feel like they're a little bit under the microscope. So a good example of this is in English, saying, "What's your problem?" is kind of rude, and it puts you right away on the offense. However, if it was said very literally, "What's your problem?" it's more of an invitation to be told that. So that's just an example of how something can be construed two very different ways. And you probably also noticed that I was using very different body language for one. One, I had a bit of a sassy head nod going on, and the other one, I had more of like an open eyes, an honest face. So think about that when you're delivering your questions, just so that the student doesn't necessarily feel like you're grilling them or that they're just another one student in the list of the 30 students you have. So make it feel like they're nice and comfortable, and it's shaping that positive learning environment that we talked about earlier.